everybody, I'm Charlotta and this is Trisha, and tonight or this afternoon we're live to talk to you all about how to pick the right project to you, how to make clothes you wear which fit you and which suit you. So we're going to talk about our own personal method and we will share lots of tips. Before we get into it, can you first of all please like this so other people get to see it as well? And secondly, let me introduce Trisha, if you haven't met her before, from the Creative Costume Academy.
Hello, everyone. My name is Trisha. I call myself your pattern nerd friend. I am here from Creative Costume Academy, and I love all things pattern making. I come from a background of making costumes for big theatrical productions, and Charlotta and I have these lovely pattern chats to share with you, and you guys get to join us as well. So I'm excited to talk about this today.
And yes, I'm Charlotta. I'm originally a fashion designer who then fell into pattern cutting and also teaching. And I always love comparing methods and styles and inspiration with Trisha, and we do these on a monthly basis. We're actually not going to do May, we're going to do June on Trisha's channel talking about books, but we love these sort of exchange, UK to US, fashion to costume, and comparing and finding. Also, I think that's really important. There are certain things which are just universal. We might have
yes
styles, make different
similarities that
things,
work in both,
but we both love pattern cutting and we both believe it's magical. And yeah, that's why
Hi,
I think,
Sarah.
yes, I can see
Hi,
lots of people in
Erin.
the chat.
Hello.
Hello. And some of you already joined me live, of course, at lunchtime. So it's the second time. Miami fashion stylist I saw earlier. But hello, Julie, and hello, Sarah, and hello, Erin again, and hello, Rebecca. And I put a question in the chat, and do feel free to answer it, because I asked whether this topic is something you struggle with. So do you struggle to pick projects or clothes which work for you, maybe, isn't it? Or how to pick something you actually wear and love. And I've just zoomed into our faces. Do you like this, Trisha, or would you like me to zoom out?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, it's great. I know. I saw the
Yes,
camera angle change.
yes.
We're getting fancy over
I'm
here.
excited.
Wow. Hi, Jocelyn from Jamaica,
Jamaica.
Joycelyn,
And we
and
got,
Michigan.
yes, you got people from
I think
everywhere.
that's
So,
Carolyn. Carolyn, I think is her
oh
name.
yes, to Caroline. Yes,
To
it's
Carolyn.
Caroline.
Yeah.
Yes, it's lovely to see you from all over the world. And
Yes. Yes.
I'm really interested in this topic because that's where fashion and costume are quite different, because it's sort of different purposes, and also, of course, making clothes for yourself is different than working on a production or designing a collection. But all
Yeah.
of them, you need to pick the right style, the right theme, the right project for yourself. So do you want to share your own process and how you approach that, Trisha?
Sure. I will first share that this is a very hard step for me. I've never considered myself a designer. Like, I like what I like, and I don't even really think too much about that. And I got away from sewing for myself for so long because of business, because of work. And in my world, in my career, what happens is a designer says, "Can you make this? I want you to make this." And I go, "Okay." And I figure out how to make it. Like, I don't have to do that figuring out part. I am the one fielding the questions. Do you want it like this or do you want it like this? And pattern things I solve, but when I started making clothes for myself again, this was a hard thing, and it's still a hard thing when I go, "Oh, I have to make something for an event, or I have to make, or I get to make something, like, what do I want to make?" And so it's a hard thing for me to dive into, and it takes me a while to find my inspiration. So there's a lot of things that I think about is what is the event, or what is the reason that I'm making this thing? And that usually comes that's the first thing I consider. And then secondly, like, I spend a lot of time on stuff that I make for myself, because if I'm gonna make it for myself and spend the time and the money, I want it to be exactly the way I want. So that kind of commitment, I'm like, "Oh, it better be something I'm gonna wear more than once, and I want it to be comfortable." There's a lot of thought that goes into it. So I start by entertaining ideas, or things that I find is inspiration. So I start looking for inspiration, I think is the first thing. And then, I look at, do I want to make pants? Do I want to make a skirt? What fits the theme of the event that I'm going for? What am I going to be comfortable in? I love to have pockets. Let me know in the chat if you guys are like have to have pockets. I know some people are like, no, sometimes it ruins the look. But for me, I'm like, gotta find some pockets in there somewhere, especially if I'm going to an event, because like I always have my phone. So if I have to carry this around, I'm gonna lose it. So like, yes, I can do like a little pocketbook or a little purse, but that's not usually always in the plans. So just trying to, and then in following my inspiration, that can come from a lot of different places. It could just be like what I'm into. Like last year, I was into box pleats, so everything I made had a box pleat in it. If I want to go like more vintage flavor, do I look at my vintage resources, my vintage books? Do I scour Pinterest for different things? Usually it starts with like an article of clothing. Like I want to make wide leg pants, or I want to make a dress of sorts, or I want to make a vest. Like I just made a vest and pant suit, if you will. But I didn't know what kind of vest, and so then I kind of go down that path. How would you say you get started?
Yeah, I'm going to actually separate professionally and personal, because like you, it's very separate. But I just quickly wanted
Yeah.
to highlight a comment around the world fiber said it's harder to figure out what I want for myself now that I'm seasoned. And I was just, before this live, I was thinking about it, because I think we both have it where professionally you get a certain fee. In my case, I am the designer, pattern cutter, or the teacher. So you have a
Right.
specific theme, but that gives you really good boundary or parameter to work out what you want. So,
Right.
if the theme is 1950s France, you do lots of research, like you collect your images, and then you
Right.
narrow it down, and then you build something which works together. But you probably won't vary it all. So it's sort of like more objective. It's quite nice to just build something which works beautiful, and where you have all the different components you need, whether that's garment parts or fabrics and occasions.
Mhm.
But I think for yourself, it gets harder and harder,
Yeah.
because you have a lot of clothes. I think I was just thinking when I first started really getting into fashion and working, I used to make so much stuff, because you just get, even like after a long day, you get home and you say, oh, I quickly want to make it, and you just make it. But the more you have, the more you think, oh, I have something similar, or how can I do it slightly different? So I think it does get harder. And my own design process is a bit, with you, Trisha, I've actually really struggled with it over the last, maybe since I've really got teaching online as well, because you're always doing new tutorials, you're always looking at new styles. So it's quite hard to focus on a project from beginning to start, and sort of really stay focused enough to say, oh, there's a new style I can add to it, and not get
Yeah.
seduced by what's out there and what's beautiful. So what I've done over the last sort of 3 years is not to push myself too much, and also not to, because I get to draft quite a lot of very beautiful vintage styles for my website, is to actually think, what do I wear? And that's sort of one of the things where, when you draft for yourself, it is very much about thinking, what do I actually need? Like, I love pretty
Right.
dresses, and I love sleeveless dresses, but I live in England, and I hardly
It
ever
gets
take
full.
my cardigan or my jumper off. So it's sort of
That's one
thinking,
thing I thought about. It's interesting you say that, because I'm working on a dress right now that I'm gonna wear to DC, Washington, DC in May, which is still kind of a little chilly. And I thought about going sleeveless. And then I was like, if I go sleeveless and what I'm doing with the rest of the dress, there's all these details, and I wear a jacket the whole time, then you're missing half of the dress, half of the design. So I am going to add sleeves for that reason.
yeah. So I think that's what you have to, when you see a beautiful design, you always think, how practical is it? Like, does it
Hmm.
suit me? Which is a different thing, but also how practical it is. And then actually maybe make some clothes which you would wear every day. And that's what I'm doing at the moment, rather than sort of making the big next project
Hmm.
I really want to make. And that's actually also, I was saying, if you're a bit stuck, or if you want to make something really special like you're making, sometimes it's really worth taking a step back and making something else, rather than rushing into it, because you're always busy
Yeah.
with your other work, so you get like thinking space.
Yes.
And then you can
Yeah.
come back and think, oh, actually, I've thought of something else. And like at the moment, I really want like a tweed jacket. I've been thinking about it for a year. So that's like that's because
Mm.
it's not, you haven't got a deadline for your own clothes. So rather than trying to rush into it, I'm now sort of just actually taking things slower and working it out, because I think, especially if you're making, most of us have really busy lives, so making stuff for yourself is really precious. So
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And I wanted to also point out Miss J says that she can live without pockets, and I know that she said that before. So it's funny, the pocket debate. Some people are like has to have pockets, and other people are
well, we had a
can live
debate about
without
it
them.
actually last week on my pattern hacking live, for shirt dresses, and also this week on trousers, because my theme is basically if it adds bulk, and I think somebody else said they don't like the bulk. Oh yeah, around the world in fibers. I don't like bulk. So on fitted trousers, I would never have a pocket, but then I would probably have a jacket or coat with big pockets. So it's always
Right, right.
I have a garment which has
Gotta
pockets,
have
but
them
not,
somewhere.
yes, not all the because I think if it's nothing worse than having they have a pocket when it starts bulking up, or even worse, if it's too tight and it starts sort of coming out the top nearly when you put stuff in. So
See, it's funny that you say that because the tighter I would always put if I can put back pockets, that's my favorite. But if it's tighter, then it's okay. If like I was into box pleats last year, and I want to always have my back
yeah,
pocket, so I made these big flowy like wide leg back like pants trousers, and then I put back pockets on them, but they're so flowy that it kind of like just that's the thing that I don't like about pockets sometimes is if it's really flowy and wide and big, then you put something heavy in and it like throws off the whole look of it, or just it just looks sloppy because it's like
yeah,
flapping around because it's heavy and
yes.
the garment is not heavy. So that's what I don't like. When it's tighter, I'm a little bit more like, oh, okay, I can put it and it's gonna stay there.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, with loose
But not in the
dresses.
front. In the
Yeah, I
front,
like
not
to
so much.
mount it as well. Like it's not you. I think you do the same, where you fix it in as many places as possible. Your pocket, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
wherever they can be.
Yes.
Hide them. But Jan says, especially on the hips, too much going on. Yeah, and
Yeah.
you have to be mindful of that, like when you're sitting, because you hate those pockets when you sit and like what you were saying, like it pushes things out of your pocket. That's no bueno either.
No, I was actually going to, because my next point about how to pick a right design. Two people right at the beginning actually asked, is it Lindy in red? She said, once we have a bodice block and it fits, what do we do with it? How do we start designing from the block? Any books you recommend to help with it? And then Kai
Mm,
Crafts has a sort of related thing. I'm curious on how to use our fitted sloper with off the shelf patterns. I don't always want to design my own patterns. And I think that's sort of again, it's sort of when like picking right project, you don't have to always draw like you can tell us about your look you're drafting at the moment, just like a properly designed and drafted look. Um
right.
yeah, but
And
sometimes
that's partly because of the event that I'm going to, though. Is why I'm going that far. And sometimes that's my pattern nerd heart is happy to do it all from the get go and throw in some extra like crazy things. But actually, that's Kylie. Kai Crafts is Kylie. She's one of my students, and she is doing amazing in fitting her slopers. She just started with us, and she's fitting her slopers and doing all kinds of fun things. So, one thing I will say as far as inspiration, and honestly, I'm thinking about this because I'm going to go to Atlanta Frocktails and I have to make something. And I found the theme, and I love a theme because at least it's a jumping off point. It's like a loose theme. I don't like structured themes because I don't like to be told what to do because I'm a rebel and a seamstress, as we all are. But it's Secret Garden, so anything floral, like tulle, it can go, Edwardian, it can go, historical vintage. I'm going, I think, a little bit more vintage with it. I found like a lace, like open weave flower bit of fabric. It's like a bed runner that I'm going to make something into, but I really don't have any solid ideas because all of my solid ideas are going into this one. And this is actually what I want to make for Atlanta Frocktails is also going to be used at an event that I'm going to later in the month, which is all daisy themed. So, but I have no idea what I'm going to make. So, getting back to the question, the reason I brought that up is I have a kind of an idea, but what I'm probably going to do, and the thought that came up to me yesterday, is I'm going to go through patterns that I already have and see if I can get inspired that way. And sometimes I do that. And that's how I will use patterns that I have because they're not always the right size. If they are the right size, which is rare, honestly, if they are the right size, then I can, um, I can use them straight out. But it's I almost never use a pattern just as it is, just because that's how I am. But a lot of times, what I'll use patterns for that I have already is inspiration. Like, oh, that's a shape that I like. What does that pattern look like? And then I'll use my sloper and draft it from that. So I'm still drafting from scratch, but I'm using that as what I want this to look like. Or I can use that pattern and use my sloper as to know how to, and where to grade it to fit me. And that's a more complicated process. Actually, Kylie, there's a whole class on that you have available to you in the pattern place for how to use a sloper with a commercial pattern and the methods in which I use them. So if you are really curious and want to deep dive in that, you have a full class on that. But that's how I don't, it's hard because I think there's a big misconception that once you have a sloper that fits you, that then you can take that and compare it to every other pattern, and then every other pattern will magically fit you now that you have this sloper to make it fit the pattern that you're using. But the way that patterns are drafted, they're all drafted differently using different slopers, and that's not always such a cut and dry quick process.
Yeah, I think because I was actually going to say it's like they're really good inspiration commercial patterns,
Right.
like because they have like really clear drawing, but often it's actually faster to draft it from your sloper or block, and it sort of depends because
As far as fit goes, especially.
yes, I was going to say that if you have a fitted sloper, I would start by maybe but again, if it's your style, you can start drafting lots of fitted styles because then you can literally just quite easily use your block and then find any inspiration and try it out. And then with fit, of course, that is when you're adding design ease. It becomes a little bit different. But then you can go back to the patterns and measure them to see like how wide is it. But I often find it easier with existing garments. And when you know how much bigger to make your block or sloper,
how much ease do you want to add in and things like that. Yeah. So there's that's always a hard question, Kylie. I just wanted to mention that it's not once you have a sloper, the reason that we as pattern makers say like that is the golden key to everything, because you spend so much time making that fit your body. And then it makes making new designs off of that really quicker than oftentimes taking a commercial pattern or an off-the-shelf pattern and making that pattern fit you. Because you're going to make that pattern because you like that design, and then there's going to be different fit issues because of the way that that pattern was drafted and the sloper that it was drafted off of. It can even be faster to use your sloper and draft, which is what you're learning, in Pattern Making 101 and the other classes that we have. But it can be done. Check out that class that you have access to. It's just it's honestly it's kind of a, like, I use it as a loose guide. If I'm gonna use my sloper against a pattern that exists already, I use it as a loose guide to kind of see about sizing, but I would still do a mock-up and still do that. When I'm talking about my Frocktails costume or my Frocktails outfit that I'm gonna wear, which by the way, we Pattern Making Academy is sponsoring Frocktails, and so many fun people are going to be there and showing off our make. So if you haven't already signed up for Atlanta Frocktails and you can come, please join us in the party. It'll be great. It's happening May 4th. But what I'm probably going to do for that, I don't have time for this make because I've got so much. We also have a huge.
It's like a week, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so you got the fabric and a week to make it.
I have the fabric. It's washed. That's as far as we've got. So I don't have time for a full-on mock-up. I don't have time for a full-on like huge thing. It's going to be probably a fairly simple design, and that's why I'm using it for two events. I have like that's a good thing to point out is I have, again, where am I wearing it? What is the reason I'm wearing it for? So the other event that I'm wearing it for is actually when I'm going to deliver these costumes that we're working on here. And the costumes that we're working on here are for a huge outdoor music festival in Las Vegas called Electric Daisy Carnival. It's Vegas in May. It's very hot. People are dancing. It's all daisy themed. So I want to be wearing usually as little as possible with a flower theme. So I want this, that's why I liked the openness of this lace. So I of course want to cover all the important bits. And I will probably wear like either pants or shorts or some kind of skirt with it when I go to Frocktails, but maybe like shorts is what I'm thinking I'll wear with it, or I'll make it a dress and like have either a slip or something underneath. Like I want there to be openness to it for both things. And then I'm gonna take some. It's all white, like cream lace colored, and we have some fabric paint that we're using for this for this project, and I thought I would color in some of the. So
Ooh.
I'm trying to like, what elements can I get quickly? What elements are going to work for both events? And that's kind of where my thoughts start, and start coming together. But I need to keep it simple. I'm going to start going through the patterns I already have, like what can I do quickly and I want it to be kind of like probably strapless or very thin straps and something that covers the bust, like fitted through the bust and be very open and flowy, because that'll be fun to dance to. And and that way I can have something more fitted underneath in my bottoms. So, for me, and this is a good question, I think, for the chat. And I see, I know Lucy, it's so far from you. She's in California. Yay, Connie, welcome. And Lori, you don't have to apologize for being late. We're glad that you're here. That's a question I have is, and for you, Charlotta, and also for people watching, for me, I would say when I'm designing, especially for myself, like it's usually like I mentioned in the beginning, the garment or the silhouette, like elements of the silhouette. Like, is it pants? Is it top? Is it a dress? Do I want it to be flowy? Do I want it to be fitted? And that's where I start. And then, like this dress that I'm making here, I was inspired, and I'll share. I was like, didn't know what I wanted to do. I was very in love with masculine meets feminine, like menswear worked into women's wear. That's why I love the tie look. I just made that vest. So I wanted to incorporate some of those elements. Like those were elements that I wanted to make sure. But I was like, is it a dress? Is it pants? What is it? What parts of those elements are going to be incorporated? Um, and then I found a vintage hat. Not this one. Thank you. Somebody said they love my hat. Thank you so much. This is actually made, isn't it gorgeous?
Yeah,
I'm
beautiful.
obsessed. I'm obsessed with cloches. And I need to get my hair done, which isn't happening until I go to Vegas. So you're going to see lots of hats from me. But my friend and mentor actually made this hat. She has a millinery store in Oregon, and she made this hat, and I fell in love with it instantly. But I love vintage cloches. I found a vintage 1920s cloche when I was antiquing, and I immediately became obsessed with it and knew that I wanted to wear it. So what I'm making the dress for is I am going to be awarded Entrepreneur of the Year by Costume Society of America. So I'm very excited. And it's a lot of academics and museum costume people that are involved with Costume Society of America. So I knew when I saw, first of all, I was obsessed and in love with the 1920s cloche, but I knew wearing that to this event that others would appreciate it as well because it's true vintage. And so then I was like, I have to wear this hat with my design. And so that dictated the fabric, that, and I had a more clear vision of what I wanted it to, like the whole ensemble to look like. So my question is is it the silhouette, is it the pattern, or is it the fabric, or does it vary depending on like what piques your inspiration and kind of takes that path that you start down, or
Yeah,
does it change?
yeah, that's a really good question. And I think that's sort of like, because even if you're designing for production, like the theme is like your event you're going to, or even I always like sometimes I sort of think, who do I want to be like when I'm dressing that day? It's like
Yeah.
and sort of especially with your everyday wardrobe, which has to be really practical. I nowadays always think, oh yes, I would love to be that character. So how can I make clothes which are practical but have a little bit of that sort of fashion design spirit? And so I think that's always like something I have in the back of my mind, which is more
Mhm.
of maybe overarching style, sort of
Is
who
it
you are.
usually like designer aesthetic? Because I know you love a lot of the vintage designers like Dior and
I think if I'm sort of thinking about who I am, it's more maybe not films, books, it's sort of characters who you love and sort of thinking, how would
okay,
they dress like? So I have that sort of thing, like, how do you want to be
interesting.
seen in the world? Are you like a Audrey Hepburn? Are you who
Mhm.
are you? Which book are you in? Or which film are you in?
Right,
So
right,
I
interesting.
find that I love that. And it's sort of course like the light, the place, all with sort of the music. But then the more practical things is quite often fabric. And it's quite often even industry, you have like a sort of maybe you have a theme for the next season, but then quite often you find a fabric which
Right.
might be really directional. And it's the same for us because we like shopping, don't we? Or picking up fabrics. And quite often when I'm so thinking, oh, I want to make something for myself, I normally like you have a garment in head because there's something you need. Like I've been making trousers. And then you go through your fabrics and then that sort of
Mhm.
defines what the details are. So you might have
Yeah.
a garment in
Yeah.
mind, and then the fabric means, is it gonna be fitted? Is it gonna be flowy? Is it gonna have pleats? All these sort of
Mhm.
things, because that depends on the fabric, doesn't it? And then
Yeah.
what I'm the same as you. I don't have any old sewing patterns, but I have all the patterns I've drafted. So I
Yes.
use them because then that's basically like, that's going back to Kylie's question, is for your block basis, your starting point. It's like your perfect base garment. And then you can quite easily draft all your own sewing patterns which fit you. So
Mhm.
you might draft like a basic oversized top, a fitted pair of trousers, a loose pair of trousers, jacket, and then you can go back to it and you know exactly how it fits. You can put it on and say, oh yeah, this is sort of a trousers I'm starting out now. I'm going to add these details for a completely new style.
Mhm.
And that's what
Yeah, and
that
that
is
saves
yeah,
time too because you know that those original trousers. I do that all the time in my
yeah.
costume business. In fact, all of these are books from shows that I have done and all the patterns from those shows, and I just used them on this project that we're working on now, like, what is close to what I'm making already, and instead of starting from scratch, instead of drafting from scratch, I go to something that I know is close. So, like what you're saying, like, if you've already made a pair of trousers that you loved, but you wanna add a new detail or you wanna change something up slightly, starting with that pattern that you already drafted, you already know works, is going to
And
get
then
you
you
there
got
so
the
much faster.
exactly the fit you want already. So you basically, it's like when pattern, because at the moment do of pattern hacking on my YouTube channel, but it's exactly,
Yes,
you can do it to your own patterns as well. It's just
yes,
like it fits you. So you don't have to again fit it, as you say, or start afresh. You just have fun with designing. And quite often if you just like, if you have a fitted dress and you're changing the dart position, or you're adding a
mhm.
like an overlap dart, you don't even have to make a twirl because it already fits
Right,
you.
because you
Yeah,
already know that it fits you. Yeah,
no, it's
exactly.
like so much it puts the fun, I think, in making, and
I
takes
think
out a
so.
lot of the pain.
Takes a lot of stress out, and
Yes,
then
yeah,
you're just like, "Ooh, this fits, and it looks like something completely new."
they're
Thank
like
you for all of the congratulations,
this.
by the way, and I wanted to ask you in the chat, what starts your inspiration? Because I am not that person. I'm not a fabric hoarder, and most of the fabric that I have is not stuff I would make anything for me out of because it's very costumey,
Spandex and
like
glitter.
this. Like, I would
Yes.
not wear anything like this in my everyday life, and that's the majority of what I have. It works out great for when I'm making costumes and needing mock-up fabric, but it's hard for me to buy fabric unless I have a vision of what I'm going to use it for. I have to kind of be inspired and sometimes when I see fabric, I'm like, "Ooh, I wanna make this out of that," but if there's no spark like that, it could be gorgeous fabric, and I'm like, "I could see it as this or I could see it as that," but if nothing comes to mind immediately, I won't buy it because then it'll sit there until I
Yeah.
have time, and because I'll think of something else that I really do need to get done, like frocktails dress or this dress, and I will have to go out and buy different fabric because that's not what I have, you know?
Yeah, I
But
think you have to have an idea in your head already before you buy your fabric,
yeah,
but then the fabric might sort of decide
inspire
the
you.
design decision, the buttons, the color
Yeah.
contrast, all this sort of fun stuff. Um, yeah, we got some comments from Gail, and she says she loves Emma Peel. Yeah, so that'd be example. That'd be an example where you can sort of pick
Yeah,
out,
embody
how do
her.
they wear clothes? How do they put together? What music can you hear when you're walking down the street, basically in your head? And Gail
Like,
says,
what's the energy you wanna
yes,
embody?
I keep photos I like from real life and online. I also get inspired by fabric. Yeah, it's like your Pinterest board. I I don't know how you are, Trisha. I have a love-hate relationship with Pinterest. Because you can find good stuff, but then you always have a thing where you see all the other ones below, and when you think, you can get overwhelmed. So I come from a
Yeah.
time where you had to go to a library and you get a few magazines, and then you had to pay £1 to copy it, which is like $1.
You had to
Yes,
commit a
you
little bit
remember
more.
that? Having to queue for the photocopier.
Back in the day
Yes,
when we didn't have
the
the
old
internet.
times. So yeah, so back then, because I still got all my sketchbooks, and there aren't actually that many images in there, but that actually means you had to use your sort of inspiration a lot more and actually interpret it to work it for you a lot more. When if you have too much choice, sometimes it's harder to narrow it down
Yeah, yeah.
than just maybe like
And
stock looking.
I wanna say that, and that's something that I kind of experienced with my suit that I just made because even in designing this dress, it's because I knew I was gonna be around people who so love historical costume, love, vintage things, work in museums, so I knew that they would appreciate details. I know they're gonna appreciate construction, so I wanted to go all out, and of course, I love all those things.
And you're
But
also going to know they're really going to look at you. It's not like normally with
Mhm.
other
Yeah, no
people, they
no
just
pressure.
appreciate it's a pretty dress. They are really going to look at you.
Mhm. Yes, no pressure, it's all good.
Sorry, Trisha.
Um, but at the same time, so I started looking through knowing my audience and the event and who I want to show up as, like I think that's a really great way that you started and where you like what do you want to embody? And I do always kind of think about that. I think that's part of like dressing for the event that you're going to. Like how do you want to show up? How do you want to be perceived at that event walking down the street? Like who do you want to embody? Um I love super like detailed like pattern magic books and I actually pulled out where this design came from. This I gotta pull it the right way.
Oh,
So
should
it's
I
like
make
a
it a little
tie that
smaller?
bleeds into it's actually darts that are rotated back there and then you make it look like a tie. Well, that came from this, which is Shingo Sato Transformational Reconstruction, very popular pattern maker. And he has really unique ways of creating pattern. And this is what I'm going to ultimately be doing with the skirt. But there were other things that I found in this book. There was like a disappearing collar, and then I was looking through the pattern magic books and all of those fancy things. And it's really easy to be like, ooh, I want to do this. Ooh, I want to do this. Ooh, I want to do this. And then suddenly you just have a big mess, right? Like you have to kind of like you're saying, you have to edit down, and I think, like, that's what was happening too with my vest. It's like, I like the asymmetrical collar, but do I want a notch
Yeah,
collar? Do I not? Yeah, Pattern Magic has it as
it has
well,
a
and
different
she has
version as well. Yeah,
yeah, it's slightly different, and she has the disappearing pocket. I looked at that one too, but I think I thought this
I
one
like
went better with the
simplicity.
dress. Yeah.
Yeah,
Um, So you JJ says exactly, all the squirrels run around when I'm on Pinterest. Yeah, and that's what happens to me on Pinterest is like, "Ooh, but I like that. Ooh, but I like that. Ooh, do I like that?" And you have to really edit, like, you can over design things,
Yes, and I'm
right?
also gonna say something. The problem with Pinterest is that it isn't edited. It's not like you're looking at 1960s magazine and you're seeing lots of different styles, but they're related. Like you suddenly
Right.
get something which is somebody now copying, and I'm gonna be a bit judgmental. But some stuff is really beautiful, but some stuff is actually not that great. And I think you can get a bit overwhelmed and saying like what's actually good, what works. Yeah, no, I think squirrels running around
Right.
describes it perfectly. Yes.
Perfect, right? And Erin says she's inspired a lot by film and television. Yes, and when the marvelous Miss Maisel, I would just
Yeah.
watch the show to gush over all the
Yes.
beautiful clothes that were in that show.
And I think
So,
Erin is actually making the suit from The Birds next, from Alfred Hitchcock's film, so that'd be amazing.
ooh,
So,
that's so good.
yes.
That's awesome. That's so gorgeous. Yes, so I love definitely getting inspired by that. Lucy says she's a fabric hoarder for sure. We usually have somewhat of an idea of what I want to make with it, and then I base yardage off of that. Interesting. But then I forget what I wanted to do with it. I heard Kenneth D. King, um, he he says that his like magic number is 5 yards. You can make just about anything with 5 yards. So that's how much I bought of my wool so that I wouldn't, because I'm not done with this. I'm adding flair. The pattern pieces are going to be very abstract. And I'm like, I don't know how much to order,
Yeah,
but
you definitely need the space.
yeah.
I was there's another comment as well. Like Kylie says that she has a hard time not acquiring a lot of fabric because she likes to thrift. And I think that's for how I used to do a lot of my designs for ages, because I always used to buy remnants from either shops or
Yes.
charity shops. So you never have 5 yards. You might have 1.5 meters or
Right.
1.5 yards. But that's actually a really good starting point as well. If you literally have a fabric you found somewhere and you only got 1.5 meters, what can you make from it? And that sort of can give you, you know how you said we need some theme or boundary, and
Right.
that can
Right.
give you enough of
Right.
as
A
a focus.
boundary.
Oh yeah, I
Right.
can't do a big coat. It has to be a top. How can
Right.
I add a little detail? Have I got enough
Make
for
this top
sleeves?
special.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, yeah, and thrifting, if you can get thrifted fabric, I mean, pick it up.
Yeah.
That's why I love thrifting, and that's why I love, antiquing, because usually you can pick up beautiful things at a fraction of the cost. And then I have less restraint because I'm like,
Yes.
well, it only cost me this
And
much.
actually, I think because I know your fabric you're ordering at the moment is quite special, and that's a
Yeah,
lot more pressure. And I think if it's a big event, that's fine. But I think
yeah,
sometimes things can go wrong if you're sort of making a really special make and when you're getting special fabric. So sometimes if you're making something like you really want to show off, and you don't have a deadline like you do, and it's not just it might be something you wear often, but you want it to be like your special. Like
yeah.
Zoom meeting top, which always looks amazing. A friend of mine has
Right,
lots of those. It If you have a really design you like, make it out of a fabric you're not precious about, but you quite
right.
like, because then you can just make it, and if it doesn't work,
Yeah,
it's like a review. You can wear it for a bit and say, "Oh, actually, no, I need to move it up, or put a pocket on or something." But I think you don't want the double pressure of great design and important, and then expensive fabric.
true, true.
Like
Yeah. Well, and that's
you got the experience, Trisha, I think, to sort of pull it off. But
Well,
it's
but
like,
that's why mock-ups
ugh,
and toiles are an absolute must. If it's a client that's paying me or if it's for a special thing that I have special fabric that I can't get more of, then I'm gonna take a little bit more time and definitely do a mock-up to figure out the answers. Susan says that she has way more inspiration than I do time. Amen, sister. I have refrained from fabric stores and online shops for that reason. Fabric seems to just speak to me. It whispers at you, right? Like, buy me, buy me.
and they photograph so beautifully nowadays as well. It's like you think, oh yeah, I can, I can just see you.
Yeah. Yeah, and then Kylie says she's inspired by a sewing Discord. And I think that's good as well, is like being inspired by other people, and that's what I love about the online sewing community on Instagram and stuff like that, is you can get inspiration from other people, you know,
Yeah.
what are they doing? Like, ooh, that's a really cool detail. I want to work that in.
Yeah.
But I feel the same way. It's like I have all these things that I want to make and no time to make them in.
Yeah, it's actually at the moment I'm going through a bit of a review. Actually, I want to do it in the coming weeks because I now have so many clothes, and in a way, what I always want to make is pretty dresses. And I want to make another. Yeah, actually, I show you the fabric. I
See,
think it's
that's funny that you say that because
interior
my
fabric.
friend, ooh, oh, like upholstery fabric. It looks
Yes,
very
but it's like a
tropical,
perfect
but in
fitted
a,
dress.
it's like tropical, but in a
It's
like a
cacti.
modern. Is it
I think it's
cacti?
cacti. Can we
Oh
see the other
yeah,
side?
yeah,
Yeah, it's sort of more like, yeah, it's
like
sort of cacti
southwestern,
flowers. But I can sort
like
of see with the,
vintage southwestern.
yeah, I think pretend vintage styles. But it's sort of, it's like a really nice, it's upholstery, but it feels like a linen, like an old 1950s
Mhm,
linen dress.
mhm.
But
I
then I
bet when you wash it, it'll soften up too.
yeah, I already done it. So it's, yeah, you always like, actually,
Yeah,
I love I know we both love upholstery fabric,
yeah,
but you
yeah.
wash it a few times and often it feels like really
Soften up.
expensive linen.
Yes,
But I
for
was thinking,
sure.
oh, I really want another fitted summer dress. So then I was thinking, I've got 10. And and you're like, I might make a dress, but I make it slightly wider so I can then have it as a skirt, like just like not fully fitted, so you can wear it every day. And then I'm also gonna put a waistband on because then I can pretend it's a skirt and wear it with a cardigan. So that's about thinking as well, like if you make something, how many wears are you gonna get out of it? Because there
Yes,
was so much inspiration. Is to think about it practically for yourself.
yeah,
Because if you have a production, you have a very strict rule, and if you're designing a collection, it's normally like we need the 10 bestsellers, and then you can have a little bit of fun designing, and then we need 10 tops and 10 trousers and stuff like that.
right.
But you can think about it for your own clothes as well, as like how often can you actually wear it for what you do. So
And it's funny that you have so many dresses because my first go-to, I originally was thinking of pants because or trousers because my hardest thing is I can't go and just buy trousers. So
oh, you said
that are
yeah,
long
true.
enough because I
Yeah.
have really long inseam, I have really long legs. So the first thing I always think of making is a pair of pants. And my best friend, I was talking to her, I was like, I gotta come up with this design. I don't know what to think of. And she's like, you always make and I'm like, because the few dresses that I've made, I rarely wear because I wear mostly pants. So it was really a push for me to go for a dress. And what sold me on it is there are going to be pockets. Sorry, Charlotta. Sorry,
Yes,
Jan.
that's fine.
They
It could
have to have
be.
pockets.
I like pockets. I'm gonna be like the evil enemy of pockets. I love.
Charlotta's the enemy of pockets.
I've got very nice
she's
big pockets.
she's got pockets.
I
It's
just have like
okay.
requirements. Not all pockets are the same. This would be a beautiful jumpsuit, actually, Trisha, as well, wouldn't it?
That's
So
true.
yeah,
Well, there
pink
won't
trousers.
be the so these lines I've got to do more, but these are going to be the fitting lines actually. So there will be no waist seam. And I'm actually going to I haven't done the back yet because I just did this fitting the other day, but there's going to be is it on this side? No, it's on this side. There's going to be a safety pin
Oh, nice.
into the stitching line because that's I'm kind of obsessed with safety pins right now. So there's going to be a safety pin design which will be seaming, which will fall into the fitting as well, and then I'll be top stitching these. So there's not going to be any regular side seams, waist seam. All of that's going to be incorporated into the style lines
And I was
because
gonna say sometimes it's quite, because this is like a garment it's like a fun garment. Like you can really enjoy making it because it's so special. And
right,
that's sometimes really good as well because then you don't have to think, okay, I need, wear it to work every day and it needs to last long.
right. This
And
is
work
kind
with
of
my wardrobe. Something like that you can really play and sort of push your
yeah,
design
yeah,
limits. A bit like the hidden letter project we did. Like you
right.
could actually just
Which I
enjoy
still
the
wanna make for
design.
myself. I still wanna make for myself, and the fabric that I have that I would have to alter the pattern a little bit, and I thought about making that letters project for either for Frock Tales or for this, but I it wasn't enough. you know, it wasn't, that's where I was like, I could make pants and then make the letters thing, and then, because that's cool and it's a pattern thing, but then, and then I went down the masculine meets feminine, and went down that path, because she my best friend, when I was talking to her, she's like, well, what, go Sato, because I just love, and the pattern magic, like for that, for me, that's playing, like that's fun and exciting to do that. And I think that this will be a casual enough dress in a way. It'll have special details, but they'll be subdued. And that's where the editing comes in. It's like, what details do you keep? Because I also wanted to do something fancy on the sleeve, and I'm like, no, 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 we're not going to do. You know, you got to figure
Yeah.
out your favorite ones and kind of edit. Didn't was it Chanel or Dior that said it's like you kind of turn around in the mirror, and the first thing you see, you take off like accessories, you know, to make sure it's not
Oh, it's
too much.
overdone.
Yeah.
You always, is there somebody who said you always take something off before you leave a house, isn't it?
Yeah.
I don't know who it
Yeah.
was. Yeah.
Right. Right.
But you know what I love about that design as well? You can make a special dress, but then you could just make like a simple top out of it as well. And
True.
then again,
Yeah, true.
repurpose it. Yeah.
Yeah, reuse the pattern in a different way.
Yeah. And I think it is that sort of balance. Like I like to make one thing a year, which is so special, where you invest your time in your fabric. But then I also try to make other things I can actually wear. So I love dresses, but I do actually make a lot of trousers, because I wear most trousers like you as well, just because it's more practical in everyday life.
JJ's on my team, a pants gal with pockets.
Maybe we do have a whole session, Trisha, where we fight it out. Yes, I will wear trousers without pockets next time and show you why.
Yeah, we could do that. That'll be something we could talk about. Like we could do a whole battle of the pockets. And Sue is saying, Snoop's 819 saying, it's just like packing, remove something to fit others. Yeah. And so that's kind of the thing. And for me, you know, I wanted the tie because of that kind of theme that I'm loving. And then I want to do the seaming just because that's fun and cool. But also in the skirt, that's where this inspiration came from, is I want to do that shaping. Like I want that kind of talking about what's the feeling, or what's the mood that I want to walk in with it. And I want that kind of vintage flair a little bit. And so like having this fitted skirt, and then having it flare like mermaid, but not mermaid, you know, like that's what I loved about this.
Yeah.
But I don't want this. It's backwards, so it's hard to do. I don't want the gathering. Like that's a cool how you do it, but I don't want that. Like this is what I'm going for.
I think this design is very much how you do it rather than how you will actually design it. It's like
absolutely
too much going on, isn't it?
Right, which it goes back to that again. So and then while I was drawing like where these seams might go, when I was kind of coming up with the initial concept, that's where I was like, what does this do? It would be cool like if it did this. And then I've just kind of been obsessed with safety pins lately. So that's why I was like, why not throw that in there?
Well, again, it's a sort of editing process. And you can, I think most of us, because we're strapped by time, do it in your head. But I used to do it when it was my job quite often. You actually sit down, you get your sketchbook, and that one idea with the tie, you would sketch out 50. Just like really, they don't have to be good, but just like working out what if I make it bigger, what colors work well, you know, which fabric be, you know, like sizes, overlap, and just little variations. And that's a really good way. You can do it in your head, but just thinking what actually works together, what is too much, what do I need to take off. And you can do it on yourself as well in your fitting, isn't it? You sort of work out.
Yeah, and the fitting, I think, is where I kind of fine tune that stuff. You said draw a bunch of different versions. That's one thing I hated when I was in school and we had to do drawing class. That was not my favorite. I'm not averse to drawing. It's not my strength. But I am more of a 3D person than a flat person. Like I just need enough, and then I can see it in my head. But I hated drawing like 50 ruffles. I was just like, ugh.
I think it's also because that's a job, isn't it?
See what it looks like.
But I think there's like, especially like, I didn't go to a classic fashion school. Like St. Martin's has always been about the rebels, so we didn't do any of the drawing. But it doesn't happen. Like you never have a single drawing lesson in the 5 years I've been there.
Really?
Yeah, it
Interesting.
isn't. It's a completely different one because you're supposed to find your own styles. So you can always spot a St. Martin's fashion illustration because it doesn't look like, there's never been a croquis. Like
Croquis. Yeah,
yeah, you don't
croquis.
do that. It's like you're sort of supposed to find your own person who you draw on.
Really?
So it's
Interesting.
always like drawing. It's not about drawing raffles, but it's about just it's for yourself. So it's not about somebody grading.
Yeah, like a technical drawing.
It's about
and Gail is
communicating
saying,
what's in your head and laying it out,
correct,
basically.
to where it needs to go.
Yes,
Sue says
Snoop
she's a
says
stick
I'm
figure
stick figure.
person.
That's fine. It could
Yeah.
be, you know. You've
And
seen my
Gail says
drawings.
she needs to have it drawn out. Yeah. But you actually do really, so I guess, yeah, how you're drawing, how you draw, like when you do your analysis and stuff, is kind of how I do mine. It's like
Yeah.
I just need to know what the details are.
But you can
on
imagine
paper.
somebody who's been taught, you know, like 7 proportions and
The 7 heads,
to,
8 heads.
Yeah, you know, that's not important, is it? Important is that you understand what you're trying to achieve.
Yeah.
And Susan's saying what I envision in my head never comes out in my hands with a pencil. But it's like, you know, as long as you sort of can work it out, you know, mine don't. But it's sort of about working it out.
That's how I feel too, is that I can see it in my head and I can make it on the body better than I can draw it. So that's what frustrates me. Like I would rather not spend my time there. Like, let me just make it for you and then you'll see.
I think for draped styles it's tricky to draw because then you have to
Yeah.
either become too abstract or you have to be very technical with your drawing, isn't it?
Yeah. So I hope that gives you guys some insight. I know we kind of went all over the place, but
actually, shall we sort of summarize? It's basically having something to wear for a specific occasion or maybe for a purpose. Like your job is to go to the office every day or be a dog walker, you know, you need to be able to walk.
Right.
Then you sort of you pick a garment that gives you ideas. Then you have the fabric that will influence it as well. And then you sort of edit it all together at the end. You have inspiration. Try not to overdo it. And I don't think there's anything wrong with changing your mind halfway through as well.
Absolutely. I mean, sometimes when you go into a design or when you go into the fitting, and especially if you do a mock-up, you get to a point, and that's where I say, like, I'll edit the details, or like I want all these things, and then you get to it and you're like, no, that's really overwhelming, or it's not right, or it needs something more, you know, like, and I don't really worry too much about those things unless they're elements that I'm like, does this work? Can I work it in? Gail says she changes her mind a lot. Yeah, I mean, we're the boss, right? So we can do whatever we want, especially when it's for ourselves. So,
and I think sometimes also you might go 3/4 through and had an idea the whole time, and when you see it coming together, and it really doesn't work for you. Like you know, how you're seeing all the square necklines, and I love the idea of it. It doesn't suit me at all, but I had to make a dress first to actually work out that doesn't work, and then you can fix it. You know, you can change it for yourself. Oh, Snoops is calling it creative adjustments. Yes,
that's right. And then and then if you accidentally make a mistake and you have to fix it, that's a new design feature. Mistaken through design. And Susan, don't worry, she said she came in late. This is recorded, so as soon as we're done, actually you'll be able to watch it from the beginning if you wanted to go back.
And I wanted to say one last thing. Another thing is you don't have to make everything. So it's sort of like, you know, I still buy all my jumpers. You know, I haven't made knickers yet or underwear. You know, it's always sort of stuff like, I think that can become distracting as well. That you think, oh yeah, I have to make my whole wardrobe. We can still like buy vintage, buy other stuff, and then just make the things we enjoy making. It should never become a task as such.
That's a great point. Yeah, I love this top that I'm wearing. I didn't make it. In fact, I'm wearing it backwards. This is supposed to be the back. And I was like, you know what? I like it better this way.
Actually, I was going to say, because I've got one top I made, but I always wear back now. But I think also, even with bold clothes, what's a great thing is about designing yourself, that you might sometimes buy something and when you adjust it and you still sort of create your own project. So that same purpose you can bring to bold clothes or your own design clothes, because you can cut them apart and
Yeah, you can
change
make them
whatever.
different. And yeah, but I love that because I don't, I've been loving making all of my own clothes and I try to be conscious of what I wear, but I don't make everything and why would I? I only have so much time where I get to dedicate to myself. So I'm going to make those things that I really want to and I really enjoy. Another thing I wanted to mention too is I think, and I called myself a rebel earlier in this, I say that about people who sew in general because we're like, we don't want to just go and look for the thing that we have in our head. We want to be able to take that power and really make it what we want. And even this whole conversation, how do we want to feel? What character do we want to embody? What kind of thing do we want? All of that is important because it's what we wear really affects how we feel and how we show up for things, right? Like, when I'm going out or when I'm gonna do a live or, I'm consciously thinking about what I'm gonna wear and I get excited about different things. And that's the power of sewing. And I mean, really think about that. And that is where by having these skills, having the knowledge of pattern making, being able to make any design that you want, you have more control of that. You really can embody that character that you want to show up as. You can take that detail from that thing that you love and take that detail from another thing that you love and put them together to make it whatever you want. So it's really empowering, and but it's also not just empowering, it's important, because it does affect how you show up, how comfortable you are when you go to the thing or you're doing whatever you're doing. And I really love that part of it. And I think that's something to embrace and really take on and explore, like what is it that you want to make, what is that vibe that you want to get that doesn't really exist that you can make uniquely yours, and there's no right or wrong way to do it either. Both Charlotte and I love vintage style, but this is, like I said, this is not a vintage hat. It was made modern in the 2000s, probably, whatever, but it's vintage themed. It's off of a vintage silhouette. You can still make it yours just because it was, and then there's times and places where you want to make it historically accurate and all of those things, but you can take something that you love and make it yours. It doesn't have to follow any rules or guidelines. Like, that is the power of making your own clothes. That is the power of making and designing your own, is that you can do whatever you want.
Yeah, and it is a completely different feeling. And at the moment, I'm a bit like, you go through phases. I'm in the phase at the moment where I'm a bit like, I need to make an effort. And then, but the nice thing is, as soon as you actually start going in your wardrobe and you don't just put on your jumper every day, it makes you feel different. It gives you the confidence when you go out. Yeah. You feel more like yourself rather than somebody who's just existing. Absolutely. Isn't it? Like you actually enjoying life more. It's really important. And if if you're like me and sometimes you get out of it's just to put on maybe a top again, or it doesn't have to be like you dress up like if you used to. Like, I used to wear hats all the time. I'm not going to start to again, but it's sort of like you might just put on a little bit, or start layering it up to build your confidence as well. And it's just a really nice feeling, isn't it? Like, you step out and you actually like somebody, rather than just doing a task or another thing on your list.
And even you were saying that you're making more like everyday clothes. I made myself a sweatshirt, a zip up hoodie, a zip up jumper. I wear that thing, no joke, almost every day. It's kind of gross at this point. I probably should make another one. But I love it because when I took the time to make it, I made it out of some fun fabric. I added a stripe, like I made it the colors that I like. It's super cozy, it's oversized, like hood is big enough, like even everyday things, that I wear all the time. Those can incorporate you into them and make you feel good too.
And work for you perfectly. Like, the trousers
Yes.
with pockets I just showed off, and they are corduroy, but I made them exactly that way, what I think flatter my figure. They're the right length, the right fit. They have very big pockets and pleats. But it's like, it might be something utilitarian, but you make it, you add your little, I think I got really, really nice facing and stuff like that. So you add these little vintage details to make it you. And the hoodie is so you, Snoops is saying.
So big. Yeah, I wear it all the time. It's really like, I saw the fabric, Mimi G, because I bought it from her store, which she just recently closed, Melanated Fabric. And I went one time when I was down in Atlanta filming, and I saw the fabric new, and then I compared it to like mine. I'm like, mine is so dingy. It's because I've worn it and washed it so many times. And I was like, oh yeah, I guess it was it was more bright. But that's the thing, like, even everyday things, I think, it feels, and like you said, you can add those little details and make it exactly the way you want
And
it
also
to be.
make it
But
special. So it's not just something,
yeah,
it's not a hoodie. I'm sure, it will have the
right.
details, it will have exactly the buttonholes with zipper to make it like fully designed rather than something,
Yeah.
you pick up from the shop.
And I want to throw this in as well. And this helps me sometimes, especially if I'm struggling with what'll inspire me, or what do I want to wear for something, or what do I want to pack for a trip. And this I've done since I was a kid, so I don't know that it's everybody's thing, but when I get bored, or when I'm struggling creatively, I just play in my closet. I just play dress up like a kid, and I will reimagine. Like, I will try things on backwards and be like, do I like it better that way? Would I wear this in public? Like, or I'll find that I like a certain silhouette, or you know what, I really wish I had a crop top, or I really wish I had an oversized this in this color, because then I could wear it with this thing that I have. And so you can kind of see the holes in your wardrobe, and what maybe you want to put on that list of things when you have time to make. Or you can take things. I did this last year where I did this, and I edited my closet, and I was like, anything that doesn't fit, can I make it fit? Is that possible? Or I really love this style and it doesn't fit, and it's not really fit into my world anymore. Like, this was teenage Trish and not really adult Trish anymore. Do I pass it on to another younger
It's been 20 years. I
who
still can't move on from that dress.
and it's like, but I loved it. But it's like, I'm going to pass this on to somebody else who will also love it, So that's really good to do. And then you can make more room. Like, we end up with so many clothes, and then half of them I don't wear, or you forget that you have them or how to wear them. And so that's really good to do. And it helps with inspiration and what kind of you want to add to that as well.
I try to do like a seasonal, where I just look through my wardrobe and actually look through everything I own. And then the other thing I wanted to add, like, if you have something and it might not be right, you can make a crop top out of an existing top. Or if you have a dress and make it a skirt, that's a great thing with your clothes. You have the skills to, again, in that way, will make it something new, really exciting. But it's a really quick and fun way to doing, rather than starting it from zero. And you already love the fabric and the fit. So
that was another pile that I added. It was like the give it away to the charity shops, the Goodwill, and it was the I'm going to keep this, and then there was the I'm going to alter this in some way to make it fit for me, like either in style or in fit.
I did it last year as well. Of saying, that will become something else.
Yeah, I have a bin.
Okay.
I did make it like in my community, we set goals every quarter, and that was my quarter goal, was to do 3 upcycles, 3 changes to something. And I did actually, I did at least 2. Yeah, I think I did 3 or 4 where I altered them in some way, and now they're part of my wardrobe again in a new way.
Right, yeah. And it's much more fun than mending as well, if you actually upcycle it and you make it something exciting, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
Anyway, so I hope you all found our very elaborate way of designing helpful. We went into lots of things, but that's what's nice. It's sort of you actually find out new things, like Trisha likes to wear her things back to front, and I'm the enemy of all pockets. So thank you so much for joining us. Trisha will be at Frogtails next
Yes,
month.
come
So
join us at Atlanta Frock Tales. You can find out, I don't know, Aronica of Needle and the Bell on Instagram is talking about it, but Atlanta Frock Tales has its own account on Instagram as well, and so find out information. Come hang out with us. Mimi G is going to be there. Julian Crates is going to be there. Aronica Bell is going to be there. Dejanay is going to be there. Like lots of fun people. I will be there. I am going in
your daisies.
just in my daisy floral, see how it turns out in person. And I am going just for the day. I literally fly in the morning and I leave late in the wee morning hours of Sunday. So I'm not even staying overnight just because I have to be there. It'll be fun. So yeah, please join us for that. And Pattern Making Academy is sponsoring it, so we're gonna come up. I don't think we finalized what we're gonna be giving away. We are giving away in the goodie bags will be a measuring tape, a little Pattern Making Academy measuring tape. I have ordered those and they just arrived. So, there'll be lots of other fun stuff and delicious food, and it's just fun. I wish I could do all the Frock Tales. Like South Florida that I sponsored last year just had theirs, and I was so bummed. There was just so much going on, I couldn't go, and Chicago Frock Tales is right after that. I would like to try to do New York Frock Tales. I don't even know when it is. But yeah, Frock Tales are just so fun to get everybody together to see what everyone makes and just celebrate makers. But
yes, you want to go out in real life as well as this, isn't it? And actually
and meet people. Like I'm excited. There's some people that I haven't met in person yet that are gonna go, and that's what's really great. If there's people that you've connected with on social media and then get to go and meet them in real life.
And I think we are having our first one in the UK, but the tickets sold out super fast. I think it's maybe in the autumn. So yes, hopefully become more global, like us meeting up. It should be lovely.
I hope so.
Yes. Wonderful. So yeah, so I'm hopefully I'm just finalizing all the final touches on my new courses and offerings, so that will happen next week at some point, fingers crossed. And then Trisha and I have lots of stuff going on in May, so we won't be live together on May, very sadly, but we'll be back in June, and we thought we'd bring a theme we all love, which is books. So
yeah, books and resources,
sewing books. I've just ordered a book on pressing, which I'm excited.
Ooh, I had one of those as a kid. Like ironing pressing.
Yes,
I was
the whole book.
Flower pressing. Have you
no,
seen that? Where you press, like you can use flowers and plants to like dye fabric, like to put prints on
yes,
fabric.
you can do that as well. Yes, yeah. There's a name for it. Yeah, and you can use a hammer as well, which is very satisfying. Yes, no, this book is all about ironing pressing, so that'd be quite very niche.
So you're right, but that's good. It's funny. I've had people ask me about that before, actually. So yeah, we're going to be sharing all of our favorite books in June. That'll be over on my channel. So if you're following, make sure you're following both of us, because we go back and forth.
We got all our links and stuff in the description, and it will be on June the 20th.
June the 20th. So we'll see you back live for that. We always love hanging out with you all. Thank you so much for chatting with us in the chat, and we hope that if you're watching the replay that you enjoyed this too.
Yes. But thank you so much for joining us. It was lovely to chat to you all. Bye.
Bye.